Hello, and welcome to Resilience Radio. I'm the host, Irvin Eisenberg, owner of Resilience Occupational Therapy, and host of the show. Today, I have a guest, Amy LePage. As always, my disclaimer is that none of this is meant to be medically diagnostic, prescriptive in any way. Everyone's got their own unique health considerations, and just take that into account. Additionally, nothing in the podcast is necessarily my opinion or the opinion of Resilience Occupational Therapy. So it's great to have you on again, Amy. We had you early on in one of the, I think in the first 10 episodes. So It's been a while.
Thanks for having me again.
Yeah, can you introduce yourself and talk a little bit about what your practice and business look like?
Yes. So my business is eMERGE with Amy LePage, and I'm here based out of Montpelier, Vermont. And I also do a lot that is online now as well. So that's always a way for people to kind of join either classes or individual sessions that I'm doing. But I have a focus. I kind of usually talk about it as sort of having these two pathways. One that is focused on somatic movement and bringing in some support around sleep, and also body work, and bringing in with that body work hands-on techniques as well. And my other path is working with people during the perinatal time. So that could cover from pregnancy, preparing for birth with childbirth education, postpartum support as well. And then also offering some classes that are helpful even beyond the just immediate postpartum, and kind of supporting people and families past that with really this approach to learning more about their bodies, understanding themselves better, focus on movement and just feeling better in their bodies, and also stress relief and reduction. So kind of incorporating all of that and melding that all together. Yeah.
Well, you've got such a great holistic practice, and I've enjoyed our conversations over the years.
Yeah.
We're gonna break this out into 3 separate episodes for the listeners and viewers. I figured for this one we were talking about starting off with sleep. And one of the reasons I'm interested in sleep for people who have listened to the show or know me is I found it interesting that the research around pain, which is something that I focus on, seems
Mhm.
to say that some of the best ways to help people with chronic pain is cardiovascular exercise, goal development, education on how the nervous system works, and sleep.
Mm.
So I love that sleep was a topic that you mentioned, because that is something that I've been thinking about a lot myself. So I could start saying a lot of things I think about sleep, but I'm going to have you, I'm going to pass it over to you and just tell us, why is sleep important? And
Yeah. Well, I've been finding that it comes up, I feel, more and more for the people in my spheres. And I think because I do work with a population that is welcoming young human beings into the world, the sleep is disrupted for sure. So it is helpful kind of for that stage of life. But I also kind of work a lot with people kind of on the other end of the spectrum who are older, and kind of the shifts that they have in life as they're getting older, and what sleep is like for them to navigate. And then also being currently where I am at my stage in life, just the changes that happen hormonally with sleep as well. And then so just really finding that for anybody, it's really a topic that's important. And I have kids who are in their 19, 20, 21ish, and there's this conversation all the time of I'm just so tired. I wake up feeling really tired. And so it's just it's a theme, I feel like. And then, especially as you were saying, when I work with people who might not even say that sleep is an issue for them, when we actually start to work together and we talk more, usually something comes up around there being some challenges around sleep as well. Um, yeah, I'll just say that's kind of the why. More to say about kind of my approach to it. But yeah, I would say it's a topic that's there even for people who might not even know that it's kind of there.
yeah. Okay. So what's your approach to sleep?
Yeah. So I feel like I kind of come at this a few different ways. Definitely through this sense of building body awareness around this. So it might look like, when I work with people, it might look like a little bit of starting to get somebody to kind of notice, oh, I think I actually am a mouth breather compared to a nasal breather, right? Nose breather, right? And we might then have some conversations around, oh, what is happening around that, kind of exploring what is happening with their breathing mechanism. And then also, what does that look like during sleep as
Hmm.
well. And a lot of people are like, "Oh, I don't breathe through my mouth." And then, like, even sometimes being on a table and, like, somebody kinda drifts a little bit, and then, like, oh, they might be doing a little bit of that mouth breathing. And so that's just like one example of how then I might take that and then just give some strategies around starting to tune into and notice as they're moving through their day also. Because sometimes what's happening when we sleep and around how we're breathing can impact our quality of sleep that's happening as well. So that's one example. Another example is the approach of what I'm bringing in now. I've done training with the Sounder sleep system. I'm not sure if you've heard of that at all.
Not familiar, but yeah, lay it
Yeah,
out.
laid out, yeah. So with this approach, it's starting to really look at what is happening with basically how our brains and bodies are responding to stress responses to life in general. And how if we are staying all day long at a certain heightened place, stress wise,
Hmm.
how the brain, the vigilant part of the brain, the more like, okay, where am I? What's
Hmm.
going on? All of this, that's really active. And that if we're in that really activated state and then we try to rest and sleep, it's like the brain is still going, 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 going. And so these are some strategies to actually help the brain shift out of that more vigilant state into the parts of the brain that can actually help to bring in and induce sleep and
Hmm.
actually be able to try to like, okay, let's calm and quiet that vigilant part of the brain. And the focus with that isn't just okay, I'm trying to fall asleep. What are these strategies I can do right now? It's really going back to how am I living in like my daily life, right? Like, what are those levels? And can we start to bring in some things during the day? They call them day tamers. And what I like about that approach is it really coincides with how I teach movement and work with people body work wise of bringing in little snippets that you can feed and weave into your day so that you are building that body awareness as you go. And then it's like this whole picture basically of like, okay, how can I create these little moments where things can kind of go, okay, here, I'm going to take a few breaths. I'm going to move my body because I've been sitting at this computer for
Hmm.
4 hours in a really awkward position and now my neck hurts and I haven't been breathing and. And so it's trying to build in this kind of this new way of being. And I think also it can kind of start to bring in this idea of creating bridges. So if we're trying to get from point A to point B, we sometimes want to just get there, But it's like sometimes we need a little help. And so I think about some of the sounder sleep system explorations and some other kind of things with the movement piece, but is really creating that little bridge to be able to tune into those transition moments and not just expect us to go like that, one place to the next, and then boom, just be able to fall asleep.
When you're talking about bridges, are you talking about
Mhm.
building those bridges throughout the day as part of your practice, or is that specifically building it for when you're going to sleep?
Both. Yes. So building those bridges throughout the day. And then also meaning like if the brain and body is used to doing that throughout the day,
Hmm.
then it's going to be easier to actually be able to do that, creates that bridge in the evening as well. Or if you even wake back up. And so one of these other ideas behind this is that, like, so let's say somebody's having a hard time sleeping. They finally are able to fall asleep, but then they wake up in the middle of the night. Kind of the first thing that might happen is like, oh no, I'm awake again. I'm not going to be able to fall asleep. And
Mm.
so then stress responses are being released in the body and things are riling up. And some of the strategies are actually to be like, oh, okay, I might need another little bridge right here to kind of talk myself down a little bit and utilize some of the techniques in that moment so that maybe over time, or not maybe, but yes, over time, you can start to support yourself in those moments. So the first response isn't, no, I am awake again and I'm not going to be able to fall back asleep
Mm.
and spiraling in that place.
There was some YouTube video I was watching from a doctor who specialized in sleep a while back, and I
Mhm.
can't remember who it was, so I can't cite it properly. But
Yeah.
he was talking about his useful restorative rest or something, wakeful rest, and he was
Yep.
talking about the idea of like you can have up to an hour of laying in bed that
Yeah.
is equivalent of 20 minutes of sleep. Now, I'm not sure if that's 20 minutes of
What
light
kind of?
sleep or and such, but the idea that like you failed because you're awake. He was trying to
Yeah.
So if you're awake for an hour in the middle of the night, that might be
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
I have a few different directions of things that I started thinking about, and
Yeah.
one of the things I love is this: how much, how we come at things from different directions, but how much over the years our practices have paralleled in our ways of thinking about things.
Yeah.
But before I do that, did you were talking about briefly talking about mouth breathing stuff, which is something I want to unpack a little bit.
Yep.
You were talking about this idea of the bridges and the sort of training those transition moments. Was there another part to your sleep, the things that you do with sleep that?
Well, I guess just the way that I work with people is this like I am basically experimenting at this point where it's like, hey, does a 4-week series work for people? Does a 3-hour workshop work for people?
Okay.
Individual sessions work best for people. My little dreamy dreams, I'd love to do like a weekend long, and I kind of have it in the works a little bit. Digital detox slash sleep
Mm.
focus weekend, and really kind of like envelop it, kind of go around all the edges of different things, and create like immersion experiences too. And I think like even just a little snippet of time with some of these practices can be really helpful for people too. And I
So
think non-sleep deep rest is what you were talking about.
yes. Thank you. I'm jumping in a lot of different. So one of the things I was thinking about is that idea that I talk about a lot is that this idea of the 8 hour sleep night, where you go to sleep, you wake up, and you have to clocked in your 8 hours,
Yeah.
is seems very reminiscent to another 8 hour clocking in and out, which is our work,
Yeah.
and seems to be, in the limited research I've done on it, not have really come around until the Industrial Revolution, when we were punching in and punching out on one
Yeah.
end. So we got this sense of punching in and punching out on the other. So that leads me, and my opinions are coming through on this, obviously, but what are your thoughts on being awake in the middle of the night, different qualities of sleep, how long of sleep, and naps? I know that's a lot of material, but it seems like it's
Yeah.
all
No, it's
under sort
great.
of this umbrella of what is healthy sleep.
Yeah. And so with the sounder sleep system, that is one of the things I talk about, how just what you said about how this whole like 8-hour chunk of time is not what it used to be. So, and some of that is actually really helpful, I think, for some people to actually think about and realize. And for other people, like when they just want to sleep, that's not really that helpful to hear, So it's like I share some of that information and I usually share some of that information and like take it or leave it, right? Like, how does this work for you? How does this land for you? But I think helpful for people to at least hear what you're that like same thing you've shared, what you've been kind of reading about too. Um, I love that idea because I feel like what it does is like it gave me permission to be like, oh, I'm awake right now. It's actually it might be okay. Like it's okay because maybe I don't have to immediately shift into that high cortisol. Like, oh no, I'm awake. I'm not going to be able to fall back asleep. And I think having some strategies to be able to use in that moment is helpful compared to just waking up and saying to oneself, oh, well, she said it's okay to wake up when I might really want to be asleep. So, really being able to utilize some things to help get to that idea of like deep rest while you might not actually be in sleep mode. That having that support, I think, is pretty important for a person to feel like they kind of have something that they can, I guess I'll just say, do, something to do in that moment. But really, it's something to kind of like be instead of do. And I think that kind of also feeds a little bit into what are people's comfort levels and comfort zones with just being. What happens with the thoughts and the spiraling thought, all of that, right? Like, where does the
Mhm.
mind go when we're in a place of quiet being? And you asked about naps. There literally are times within my day where I have a chunk of time between clients and I will set a timer for 20 minutes and I will just lie down on my table and I will rest. I might nap, but I'll kind of think of it more as rest. And if I happen to nap, that's that happens. I don't do it all the time for sure. I kind of I'm tuning into like what does my body need
Mhm.
sensation, and that is part of the sounder sleep when you work with this, there is a like, hey, kind of try this sequence for about 3 weeks. And each week there's a little different something that you do. And one of the first things is trying to bring in throughout the day, like one time where you actually try to rest for like
Mhm.
10 to 15 minutes, which is a hard ask for people, like in the middle of their day to find that time. And it can look like a lot of different things. And so it doesn't mean having to lie down. It could mean doing some of the day tamer type things they do that are very lulling in the very subtle movement. And I kind of feel like even the word rest, what does that even mean to some people? That might literally just mean stop going, 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 but they might just be sitting upright, taking a few breaths. Somebody else, it might mean lying down and taking a nap. It might mean just shifting from what they're doing and being outside and sitting and breathing some fresh air could be rest. That maybe isn't technically nap, right? But it's at least giving the body, the brain, the nervous system a chance to
Mm.
kind of recalibrate a little bit.
You used the word day tamer in there. I can't remember if this is the first time you used it, but can you unpack that?
So with the sounder sleep system, which I kind of weave in the training and the learning from that with some of my other somatic practices, but
Mm.
that day tamer is from the sounder sleep system, which was developed by this man named Michael Krugman. And the day tamer are like they can be things that you do sitting or standing. So you can do them during your day. You could even do some of the lying down ones during the day too. But again, for a lot of people, it's easier to access things that they don't have to feel like they need to lie down for. And they're very subtle, gentle, either like they're attuned breath awareness practices that also bring in some very subtle movement, which we could even do one if you wanted, if we have time for. That I could guide one. And so that's considered a day tamer, with the tamer piece, meaning we're trying to get ourselves in that brain to shift out of that vigilant mode, that
Mhm.
action oriented mode, into that state of like being kind of maybe calming and settling and pausing
Mhm.
all the action, basically. Yeah. So that idea of like we're taming some of those patterns and habits throughout the day so that we have some time where the nervous system can calm and settle as practice for then in the evening trying to do the same thing.
Wanted to
Yeah.
talk a little bit more about naps in
Yep.
terms of, are there times that it's not a good idea to nap? And I notice also the period of time you said 20 minutes. Do you not like to nap more than 20 minutes?
Well, I think and I don't know the exact, like, what is the science out there about length of time? I couldn't say what
Mhm.
those minutes are right here. I do personally have a sense that if it is like a shorter amount of rest time slash if I happen to nap, that I arise from that feeling like, okay, compared to like, I'm really groggy. And then in terms of the timing, I think like, I'd be curious, like, part of me is kind of like, I don't wanna say, like, "Here's a good time, here's the worst time," that because I also don't know what are people's rhythms, right? Is this somebody who actually, like, do they do the whole clock in and out for these 8 hours, or are they more sporadic in what their schedule and day looks like? And I had one other thought that was connected to that, and it just flew away. Hmm, I'm not sure if I'm gonna get it back.
Is related to the when of napping?
Yeah. Yeah. And, the whole like some people function better at different times of day than other
Mm.
people. So it's kind of like if somebody is trying to get themselves to fit into a certain structure, but that's just literally not what works best for them, right? But what if they actually were like, I am a night owl and I actually do like I can get things maybe more whatever, like function later at night doing a couple things or whatever, then maybe that's okay to actually let people figure out their rhythm that works well for them. But could the baseline of that be like, okay, and can you also feel like you're getting good sleep and you wake feeling rested? And
Mhm.
maybe how are you working with some of these strategies, but also with what some of your like sleep and wake times look like? So it's kind of I guess I look at it instead of like a here's the like the mold that everybody has to fit into. It's just like let's take each person individually and see how it's all working.
Yeah, we're. I think that's one of the things that I similarly push back against, there being a single correct way to do it. And the question is, what's a
Mhm.
better way for you to do this? Is there a way
Yeah.
that you can have some tools so that things work better for you?
Mhm.
One of the things I think about is, for myself, I've sort of gamified sleep a little bit through some of the
Mhm.
more tech stuff. So I have an Aura Ring and I track stuff with that.
Yeah.
I've been using the Aura Ring app, and what is the name of this other app that a client mentioned, which is the Rise Sleep app, which
Mhm.
I don't fully know what I think of it yet, but it looks at activity and it's getting data from the Aura Ring as well. And it's actually tracking when your peaks are as
Yeah.
far as energy. Now, my understanding is, and this is probably an oversimplification, but we sort of have two peaks a day, one in the morning, one in the afternoon or evening. Almost everyone has the 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock just drop.
Yeah.
Um, and that's we could get into cortisol levels and melatonin stuff, but that seems pretty universal, that drop, and that shows up in Chinese medicine and stuff as well. But it seems like one of those peaks tends to be great for like data entry, detail oriented, getting the thing done, and the other one tends to be useful for creativity. And that some people tend to be better at their data entry stuff on their morning chunk. Some people that's that afternoon chunk, and that there tends to be like the night owl versus the lark. It might actually be the type of activity you're looking for. So so the artist might do great trying to actually get their bills paid in the morning, or they might be the early morning artist, and it's better to do their bills at night. And
Yeah.
not that it's just the artist, but it's sort of anyone with that. But there does tend to be the archetypes of the which type of activity. So that's one thing I'm going to put in there. But
That's great.
so those are some of my general thoughts. But my question for you is, what do you think about the technologies that are now available for and
Yeah. Oh, I have such like a push pull relationship with technology. Anyways, I will say I recently have started to wear my son got a new Garmin running watch, and so I was like, "Can I use your old one?" And so I've started to track my sleep a little bit because I'm like curious, you know? And so I use it very loosely, partly because I'm still trying to figure out why won't it sync? It synced like a week ago and it's not syncing again. So there's that aspect of just like, how does somebody feel about technology, about wearing the thing on their body? And I do think it's like, again, it's sort of like I look at it a little bit like, cool, what information can I glean from this? But then how do I not get so hyper focused on it that I'm like, my watch said I got 2 hours of deep sleep last night. That's so cool, but I feel exhausted, right? Like, so there's that line of like, yeah, can you use the information and have it spur curiosity or questions or like help you learn more, but then not necessarily get so zoomed in, focused on it that that's what you're paying attention to more than this body that you live in.
mm-hmm.
You know, and how do you kind of like weave it all together?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, some of these are better at picking up naps than others. So it ends up,
Yep.
so you might, if I took a great nap and I know that that was valuable, but my Oura ring didn't pick up on it, it's like the tree fell in the woods. So,
Right.
and the ring didn't record it. So I didn't get the sleep benefit.
Right.
And that's ridiculous, right? That's so just because it wasn't quantified doesn't mean there wasn't a benefit. However,
Yep.
at the flip side is when I take a nap and the ring does record it, am I able to see I caught up on deep sleep, or hey, I caught up on REM sleep, and what are some of those implications?
Yeah.
Or hey, it seemed like it was good here, and then like I feel draggy. Is that just because I woke up during deep sleep, or is that
Mhm.
or REM sleep, or what exactly took place here? So, and one thing there's sort of a plug for, and it is I don't have a basis of comparison, but my understanding is the Aura Ring's verbiage for how it describes what happened is sort of umbrella overview seems very. They must have a really good hired really good social workers for the verbiage on it, because
Sounds good.
it's not like you had a terrible sleep. It's like you had a little bit of challenge with your deep sleep last night. Could you have maybe ate something or done something that
Yeah.
was disrupting that?
Yeah.
It'll be okay.
Yeah. That's
So
awesome.
so its verbiage is great on that versus like, and when you wake up, it doesn't show up as a red spike; it's a white one.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I do like their presentation, but
Yeah. And those things matter, I think. They really matter. They
absolutely.
hit the psyche of a person, you know, and they make a difference.
Yeah, so it might be great for some people, and I've enjoyed having the Aura Ring, but that doesn't mean that each person's relationship to technology and is. But I also, one of the reasons I like it as well is people will be like, I didn't sleep a wink last night. I got zero sleep. And I'll be like, you got zero sleep? Yeah, I just laid awake the whole night. I'm like, I don't believe you. Like, I think people's self-reports of what their sleep was, not that the ring is 100% objective by any means. There's definitely a
Yeah.
lot of error in there, but I'm like, I don't believe. Or the person's like, I didn't wake up at all last night. I'm like, most people wake up once, not always, but you might not remember your wake up. So it's
Yeah.
like the amount of sleep, the qualitative and quantitative, because it breaks it into the different types, can be useful data. It's not always accurate. You still have to reflect how
Yeah.
you felt about it.
Yeah.
So one more thing, unless you had other things you wanted to discuss on it regarding. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, well, just one other thing to add is because you sort of mentioned it, and I know I was like, how are people gonna pay attention to this, the body they live in, or are they gonna pay attention to the thing? And sometimes the thing can help them learn how to pay attention to the body, right? And so that is the piece of, like, we're all different of how we learn and take in information and how it's like a bridge, right? Is maybe
Mhm.
that the watch or the ring could be a bridge to accessing more body awareness, you know?
Yes.
Yeah.
Versus it getting too external, making it the
Yeah.
bridge. I'm liking that term. I wanted to discuss because you started off talking about mouth breathing, nose breathing, and such, and we
Mhm.
didn't unpack that. Before
Yeah.
we jump into that, which feels like a little bit of a different topic than what
Yeah.
we've been talking about, is there anything else you felt like we should discuss on this?
Mm, I think really just this idea of, it can feel like such a daunting topic. Like, I know some people I've run into and, like, feeling kind of really at their wits' end of, like, not being able to sleep, and really having it impact their life, and how they're feeling, and just that, I think sometimes it can feel hard to try something new or you feel like you're trying all the things. But I've had a number of people like who've done some of these like movement and breath and like day tamers and lulling movements, and they've just found them so helpful. So I think sometimes it's like just like give some things a try. You never know. You never know what one thing might just be really supportive in helping to make some shifts. Yeah.
I do want to address the mouth breather,
Yeah.
nose breather. Of course, one of the first things that comes to some people's mind is like mouth breather is like an insult, and especially like Stranger Things, she called them. She was referring to
Mhm.
people's mouth breathers. So,
Yeah.
could you speak to what do you mean when you're speaking about breathing through mouth
Yeah.
versus
Yeah.
nose?
So there's a number of things that are happening, and I'm not gonna be able to speak to all the details, but different things that are happening when air comes in through the mouth compared to when
Hmm.
it comes in through the nasal cavity. Sometimes there is also just this, like, habit of just kind of the mouth being a little open, and then that's where the air comes in. But then sometimes it's about the tongue, like, what's the tongue muscle doing?
Hmm.
Where is the tongue resting in the mouth? What's happening with the nose? What's happening with the septum? Like, is there even space and room for air to come in? And a lot of times, what kind of prompts people to breathe through their mouth is that there might not be passageway for the air through the nasal
Hmm.
cavity. It could be like, chronic like allergy type symptoms where things are just feeling really stuffy or whatever, but it could be a deviated septum. Like, there's so many different things, or it could just be habit. And then this kind of gets into a whole other conversation around, you know, sleep and snoring and all of that, like, kind of related to what's happening with the tongue, what's happening with like how is the breathing happening. And that's not my skill set, but I'm curious about all of that, just because of some individual work that I've been doing. But even to this idea of we the mouth gets drier. So sleeping at night, and if we're breathing through the mouth, that happening. And how are we waking up feeling? And are we maybe having some of the wake up be because of that? Or if we get into, like, there's tongue exercises you can do to kind of articulate the muscles of the tongue more, that sometimes can help with sleep too. So depending upon when we're sleeping, is the tongue sliding a little bit back down into the throat, impacting the breathing? Some of this is an example of the somatic movement piece that I bring in, with classes, is we sometimes bring in movement and standing postural awareness with what's your tongue doing? Where is your tongue?
Mm.
How are you breathing? Are you breathing through your nose right now? Or are you breathing through your mouth? And we just kind of start to layer in these opportunities really for people to start to become a little bit more attuned to be like, oh, what is actually happening and how does it feel? Maybe we can delve more into one of those explorations in the movement segment that we do. Kind of just, I don't know if that kind of answers that question a little bit, but it kind of brings it into like a curiosity question.
Okay, I like your curiosity approach for it. I tend to be someone who pushes back against absolutes and dogma,
Mhm,
and I also understand there is sometimes good practical advice. Like if
mhm,
someone says it's a good idea to get a good night's sleep,
mhm.
it's probably true. Well, does that have to be a night's sleep? Could it be a nap? I mean, I might push back
Yeah.
in sort of some of my more sometimes annoying sort of pushbacks. But I've definitely heard people be very dogmatic about like you really should never be breathing in through your mouth. It should always be exhaling through the mouth and in through the nose.
Mhm.
I've heard people putting tape on their mouths to see if they
Mhm.
are at all opening their mouth at night.
Mhm.
And that makes, well, there might be good sense and good science behind it. That makes makes me cautious when I hear that
Mhm.
type of thing. Not
Mhm.
that you presented any of that in
Yeah.
that way, but I'm curious what your thoughts are on some of the more gung ho
Yeah.
approach to that.
I think well, personally, I'm always like, "Huh, that's interesting," and I'll kind of learn more. So again, that curiosity factor, I'll kinda wanna learn more.
Hmm.
And I am kind of on the side, I'm like, I kinda try things because 'cause I'm curious what it's like. And then from there, I kind of formulate some of my own personal, like, thoughts around it for myself from trying some different things. And then sometimes choosing not to try something. Because when I, like, read more about it, I'm like, "You know." So, I think similar, I'm, like, not trying to so one example is, like, opening here a little bit. You know, they have those whatever you call those that go over your nose and they kinda open up your nasal,
Hmm.
you know? Um, it's like, "Oh, yeah, I can breathe better through my nose when I have one on. I can
Yeah.
also breathe better through my nose when I just go like this, when I kinda
Hmm.
create a little space. I can get more airflow through my nasal passages if I just gently flare and activate the nostrils, like,
Hmm.
I can get more air in, right? So there's like lots of different ways I could get more air up my nose. Does it need to be a thing, right? That I stick on there or not? And does it matter?
Hmm.
So I know that when I go and I'm going to walk or hike or something, I will experiment with what is it like if I try to nasal breathe while I do this and see what it's like. And there's certain
Hmm.
parts of the walk where I'm like, oh, this is like too strenuous. I can't do that. I really need both kind of to happen. And then other times where I will go back to that. And I kind of look at all of it as that like curiosity. How does it feel in my body? Yeah. Yeah. And I have found that there are times when it does feel better for me to breathe in through my nose, but I teach, which means I talk. And when I talk, I'm constantly breathing in through my mouth, right? So talking, you're breathing in through your mouth.
Hmm.
And in my teaching, I spend a lot of my day using words. So sometimes I'm curious just to be like, oh, this is what it's like to just breathe
Hmm.
through my nose.
So I think we've covered a lot on sleep. That's that's great. Thank you so much for coming on today and talking about sleep.
Hmm.
Um, we'll stay on, but we'll wrap up the show because
Yeah.
we're gonna talk about for next episode. We were gonna go into movement stuff and so what your movement
Yeah.
somatics practice is. But for those of you watching and listening, this is Resilience Radio. I was just talking with Amy LePage about sleep. Stay tuned for next episode when we'll be talking about movement. The music was brought to you by Aaron Marcus. You can check out their tune Some Biological Process for full credits on that. You can check the show notes. If you like this episode and this conversation, stick around to next episode because we'll have some more conversations. Till then, take care.